Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm Andres. I usually run this community. Okay, so this should be supposed to be recording. Is it?
I think it is already.
Okay,
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, showing rec.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, we usually have this agenda, which is just we introduce ourselves for the new people that join the first time. If they want to share what they are doing and where they are in the OpenFGA journey, that is usually welcome. And then we go through the things we ship, we demo some things, we explain what we're working on. Sometimes we are attending conference, so want to share that with you. So that's going to happen this time, and then Q&A. So we keep adding people to our team, which is great. That implied I had to refactor this slide because we were so many, and we kind of changed it the way it works. So we have Giselle now in the team for the first time. So welcome Giselle to the meetings, and she's working as an architect helping OpenFGA for now. Then, so if any of you want to introduce yourself, some of the people, at least that are new in the community or the first time you join, that will be awesome. So I will give you a couple of minutes for you to introduce yourself if you want.
I can go. My name is Noah. Here in the US, I work for a company called New Innovations, a company that has been around since the 90s. So our permissioning was also built and maintained since then, and we are building a new platform, and I have just been exploring fine-grained auth for our permissioning. And in that journey, just building POCs to model our applications and service architecture that'll kind of support making requests to our OpenFGA service. So yeah, I put a lot of questions in the Discord server.
Awesome. And sometimes you answer the questions too, which is welcome. So thank you, Noah. Perfect.
I think I can go next. Hi, folks.
Yeah.
Hi, folks. My name is Yanis. I am working for a company named Leopath. So essentially, we are in the procurement space, and since our app is service-oriented, like you can imagine that managing permissions is awful without OpenFGA. So we basically, a couple of months ago, we did our permission system in OpenFGA, and so far we're pretty happy.
Awesome. So you have it working in production already?
Yeah, we have it working in production.
Awesome.
Well, I jump here. My name is Martin Besosi. I'm from Argentina. Basically, I'm identity and access manager architect. I have been working in the identity space for a long time. And I have experience with several identity and access management platforms. So I'm basically moving all to the authorization part for fine-grained access control. This is why I decided to use OpenFGA for doing that task. Basically, the idea of today's agenda is going to show some kind of integration between an identity provider and the OpenFGA service.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Martin, for accepting my invitation of demoing what you did here. Yeah. The first time this happens, so now if anyone wants to demo what they are doing with OpenFGA, it will be awesome to have that. So think about it, and if you want to show what you've been doing. Anyone else? I see some names that I don't fully recognize. So Kevin, Nicholas, Sam, if you want to chime in. Andrew, I don't know if you are the Andrew I know, or a different Andrew. Yeah, same Andrew. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Good. Good morning, Andres.
Good morning. Okay, good. So we will move on. If someone wants to just say some things in the chat about the role and what they're doing with OpenFGA while we move forward, that will be also fine. Thank you. So some things we shipped. This is the list. I want to go to some details in the rest of the presentation. We shipped a couple of new versions of OpenFGA in the last meeting. Kept working on the CLI and the code extensions and the Visual Studio code extensions and the Java SDK. And we just in this morning have a blog with one blog post, and so we can just actually what is in the blog post we just covered in the meeting. So, but we are gonna keep, of course, publishing content in the blog post. And if any of you wants to publish something there as part of your experience with OpenFGA or something that you think is relevant, also be welcome to doing that. That will be great for us too. So in OpenFGA, we shipped mostly small fixes. There was a security fix that it took us a few weeks to address properly, which was there were some models that created cycles that were not very easy for us to identify. And if you had one of those models and you do some checks, we could got into an endless loop, right? So if you haven't found that problem in your models, you don't have the problem. So it was kind of an edge case, right? But we always recommend you to be in the latest version and update you, particularly when we release things that we publish a CVE, and so please upgrade to the latest one. Then we improved our telemetry by adding more things in our histograms, and we have a few contributions from the community for also our telemetry support and improving our markdown links when we validation when we merged to OpenFGA things, and added a few small fixes from the community. So thank you very much. Something we are doing today is we are moving to a new database schema for when we ship our new features for ABAC support, and the way we are gonna run that is we're gonna do small changes in the schema in different versions. So if you jump from an old version to the full version that has ABAC support, that will imply some downtime for you. Okay, we're gonna document that. But if you are kind of migrating version by version, that's not gonna happen. Okay, so we recommend you that you keep updating your OpenFGA version while we ship new versions, so they will make that database migration easier for you. Right? So keep your OpenFGA up to date if you can, please. And the CLI, we have Gabriel do some work for us, and thank you, Gabriel, there. And so he started checking out the issues we had open in the CLI and fixed a few. And this is actually a feature that is very useful for me when I do FGA demos, which is I want to delete all the tuples in the demo so I can start them again, right? And so now I can do that thanks to Gabriel, which is basically read all the tuples and with a command, store that in a file, then delete them, taking them from a specific file. And if I just want to just write them again, write them again. So these three commands will actually have no effect because they will read all of them, delete all of them, and write them again, right? But don't do this in production because for a moment your users won't have any permission. So, but it's kind of it's great to be able to do this from the CLI. So thank you, Gabriel, for this. The other thing that we mentioned the last time, but if you're not using this yet, I think you should, right? It's a feature that lets you have a model. The model can be embedded in a YAML file, or it can be in an external file, and in the YAML file, then you can add tuples and add tests. This is something that you should be running on your CI/CD pipelines, and this doesn't hit any FGA server, right? So it's not that you need to kind of point this to an existing OpenFGA servers that you're running through, that are using through the CI/CD pipeline. It's more, this runs independently. So it's a great way to test your model and make sure that the tests are running in the way you want, is behaving in the way you want. Yeah? So if you haven't done this, please start using it because it's one of the coolest features we ship in CLI, right? And we're going to keep improving this flow. In particular, the next thing we're going to do that Daniel is working on and now is to add Visual Studio Code support for editing this file, right? If you see here, the model here doesn't have syntax coloring. We're going to add that and also add validations in the CML file and eventually add IntelliSense. So when you're saying you're checking for a specific tuple, you click each, you write user, and we can autocomplete the users from the ones you have in the model. So it will be way easier to write these files over time. Right? So that's it. In the Visual Studio Code side, we are now in the nice to have area land, right? So we're adding documentation. It works in github.dev, so this is pretty cool. If you kind of click this, you see like that you're gonna get syntax coloring here. Okay, so using the extension, and if you just get this, you'll get an error that saying it's not a valid type. So all the same things you have in Visual Studio Code, you can get them if you open any file in GitHub and install the extension, which is also really nice. And then you have things like if there's a relation we don't recognize, you can quickly add one by using this fix feature that Visual Studio Code has. So the things we're working now, we keep working on ABAC. We're going to show a demo later today. We are going to keep iterating on the SDK and the support for Visual Studio Code. What's next is we are going to help you authorize calls to OpenFGA in better ways, build a new SDK for Rust, and also help you in build modules, modular models, so you can have a single model split in different files, and then you can combine them in runtime. And the idea of that is you have larger development teams, and you want each team to manage their own authorization piece. You can actually do that, right? So like so not every team needs to collaborate in a single FGA file. So there's things that are coming next, and so now we're going to start with the demo part. We're going to ask Martin to demo the integration he did with Keycloak. You can follow Martin on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or friend him, add him in LinkedIn if you want. Those are his profiles there. But I will stop sharing and I will let Martin now do his magic.
Okay. Thanks, Andre, for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if everyone is seeing my screen.
Working fine.
Good. So, as Andre was saying, my idea is to show you just a quick demo about the integration between Keycloak and OpenFGA. So I'm going to start showing like a quick overview about the authorization architecture. So this will help me to explain the authorization architecture, and then we will see all the components in the demo. So in this case, we are going to see an identity provider. As I was saying before, I'm an identity architect, so I have been working with several identity and access manager frameworks. One of them is Keycloak, so I chose Keycloak for this demo. Keycloak is basically an open source identity and access manager solution. So in the demo, we are going to see that, for instance, an application is basically integrated with the IDP with OpenID Connect. So it's in a standard way for delegating the authentication. And then on the identity layer in the identity provider, I develop basically a custom extension which help me to customize the identity provider functionality. So one thing is that on the IDP, in this case, Keycloak supports some kind of permission model, support roles, groups. So basically the extension listens to this event on the Keycloak side and then publishes to the authorization model in the OpenGI solution. So basically I'm going to go here is, for instance, when I assign a role on the identity provider, the extension listens to that event, and then using the SDK, I'm using the Java SDK is helping me to translate this, for instance, role assignment. For instance, if I assign a role view product to Paula, then thanks to the SDK, translate this event to a relation tuple. In this case, for instance, the user Paula is related to the role view product as the assignee. So this is a typical way to represent the relationship between the user and a role. And then publish the event directly to the authorization model in the OpenFGA server. So this is the way that I'm maintaining both stores synchronized. So I'm managing the identities and the roles in the identity provider, and then maintain on the OpenFGA server or the relationship synchronized. So this is happening behind the scenes. It's in real time. Yes, direct communication between the identity provider and the OpenFGA server. And then again, this is a quite simple authorization architecture. So in the demo, we are going to see a web application, which is integrated with the identity provider with OpenID Connect, as I said before. And then we are going to see an API, a product API that is protected by OAuth. Nowadays, quite common to use OAuth 2 for protecting API. So every single time that the application is trying to view or to call to a specific API request, is sending the token. And then on the API side, basically, the API is validating the token, which is an access token in a JWT format, a JSON token format, extracting the user identifier. This is the way how the API is identifying the user using the subject claim. This thing that I'm talking about is just about OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect, which is a standard protocols. And then based on the user, the API, which is like a Node.js API, is using the OpenFGA Node.js SDK in order to check with the OpenFGA service if the user is allowed to do a certain operation. So in this case, basically the API is calling to the check request API, and basically it's asking something like, is the user Paula related to the role view product with the relationship assignee? So this is the way on the API side that the API is validating if the user is allowed or not to do the operation. So far so good. Again, the authorization architecture is quite simple. It's basically I'm using the identity provider just for the authentication, and then I'm using the OpenFGA server for the authorization part. This was my goal. Try to separate the things and say, okay, identity provider just authentication part, and then OpenFGA just for the authorization purposes. So so far so good. Since we don't have a lot of time today, I already deploy and configure the platform. So we are going to see 3 users in the demo. Peter basically doesn't have any role, so Peter is not allowed to do anything in the store application. Paula is related to a functional role, which is the analyst, and the analyst role is related to the read product role, basically is some kind of technical role more related to the application. And then we are going to have Richard. Richard is an admin guy. So Richard is related to the admin catalog role. And that role is related to a technical role, read product and edit product. So basically, this is the model that we are going to play today. One, for me, great thing about OpenFGA is that OpenFGA supports relationship between objects. So no matter that the user has assigned a direct relationship with the analyst role, because of the analyst role is related to a child role, OpenFGA is capable to say, okay, if I check with the read product, no matter if I have a direct relationship with the role or an inherited relationship, OpenFGA is capable to say, yeah, the user is allowed or not because of the relationship with the child role. For me, that feature for me was great because it simplified all the API authorization policy decision. So I'm going to jump right now to the demo. again, the workshop and everything is like in the GitHub repo. Both are public repo for basically for the demo, and then a article that I wrote that is basically explaining more in detail all the things that we're going to see today. So I'm hoping you're seeing this is the admin page for the identity platform. So I'm going to log in just to show you quickly. I'm not going to detail here in Kiklo because it's necessary, but here on the identity provider side, I created the user, and then I have the role model here. And also I basically assign the role to the user, as we saw in the previous presentation. And the cool thing is, if I jump into the OpenFGA playground, you will see basically here the authorization model, which is showing the relationship between the user and the roles, or I could handle the relationship between the user and the groups. And also I am able to handle the relationship between objects. For me, is great. And here, each, let's say, event on the Kiklo side was synchronized to this relation tuple. So here I have the relationship between object, and below I have the relationship between the user and the role. So far so good. This is all the relationship tuple stored on the OpenFGA side. So so far so good. I'm going to try to log into the store application. Again, this is a single page application which is integrated with OpenID Connect. And I'm going to try to log in with Paula. Paula is an analyst user. So Paula is allowed to be information, because on the OpenFGA side, the Paula is related to a view product role as a assignee. So because of that, Paula is allowed to view the product catalog. So I'm going to try to log in. Here, standard federation, after the user authenticated, the application received the token, ID token, and access token, and then the app is calling to the API product for view the product information. So far so good. Behind the scenes, as I said before, the application is calling to the API side, and then on the API side, the token was validated, and then the API, thanks to the Node or JavaScript SDK, is validating with the OpenFGA if the user has the relationship with the role view product as assignee. And then if I try to publish something, for sure, I will receive the unauthorized access because Paula is not related to the edit product role. So this is why I'm receiving this error. If I try to, I'm going to log out, and then I'm going to log in with an admin guy. It's not an admin. The user was Richard. Again, Richard on the IDP side has an assignment with the functional role admin, and because of that, inherited the role edit and view. This is why I'm able to view the product. And then if I try to publish something, I'm able to do it because on the OpenFGA side, this user has a relationship with the role edit product as assignee. So this is why this user is capable of doing this action. And finally, if I try to log in with my friend Peter, Peter is not allowed to do anything because it's not related to any role. But if I go quickly here, look for this guy, Peter, role, I want to assign the view product roles. And then I jump here quickly. as you can see here, a new relation tuple appears, which is the user. Here is basically, I'm using, as I said before, I'm using the subclaim, which is the unique identifier of the user. So this is why you are seeing this stream. But basically behind the scenes, I did an operation of the identity provider, automatically synchronized in real time to the OpenFGA authorization model. So this is why this user has a significant relationship to the view product role. And if I refresh the page, I'm going to log in again because here, automatically the user has the proper rights. So for me, it's great because the API real time is validating with the API check API. So because of the user has a new relationship now, without any further action, the user is capable of doing a new task. So for me, was super cool to start using OpenFGA for managing those relationships. And I think this is all. Sorry if I go so quickly because I want to cover everything. Perhaps I avoided too much detail, but again, if feel free to contact me. And again, there is an article and a GitHub repo showing this kind of integration between those solutions.
Awesome, Martin. Thank you very much. So the way you end up building this was kind of using Kafka to synchronize both systems, right? So each time there's a, yeah.
It's a good question. In this case, it's a good question. In my first integration, I use Kafka because I don't have any, let's say, direct synchronization, but in this case, I have a direct synchronization between just publishing over HTTP. So this is why it's real time.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
It's probably worth pointing out too, one thing that might be subtle here and not obvious is that you're exposing your identity layers permission set and permission model to your application layer as well, right? And that's really powerful. And you could argue it goes bidirectionally as well, because if you wanted, your identity layer could be aware of your application permission layer as well, because they're all centralized through OpenFGA. So that's super powerful. Might be subtle, but it's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I will keep sharing. Actually, the next thing is Ragged is going to demo our ABAC, where we are with the ABAC support. So I will just let him take control.
Sure.
Hey, folks. So you've seen this demo before. John has demoed it before in terms of when we were starting the demo, but like the team has been working hard on taking it the full way. And we're happy to say that we're not there yet. We haven't published this, but we're on a good path. Everything seems to be working. And here, what we're going to show you is the VS Code and the CLI working together to basically test your model with ABAC. We'll go quickly over what ABAC brings here, or what we call conditions. One of the biggest criticisms of OpenFGA is that it's relation based. So sometimes when you need to do things that are related to periods or expiry dates or IP addresses or locations, it's harder. Like it's possible, but much more complicated to do it in pure OpenFGA. So that's why we introduced conditions. Let's start with the model first. So the first thing to when you want to specify a condition is you need to write it. So you'd say, okay, condition, you give it a name, representative name, and it takes a set of parameters. In this case, our condition is a non-expired grant and a valid IP. So we're going to grant someone access for only a short period of time and only from a specific IP address range. So it takes the parameters, what you'd expect. Like what's the current timestamp, what's the timestamp at the time of granting, what's the grant duration, what's the current user's IP address, and what's the IP address range they're allowed to log in from. And basically, this is the check. This is what the check will be. But how do we add? So okay, we added a condition. How would we exercise it? So we added additional things in the type restrictions. So before, you remember, you could say user, you could say user store, you could say group member. So additionally now, you're still able to say those things, but you can also specify with a condition. Note that if this is only set, then every single tuple you write has to come with a condition. If you want to write some things with a condition, some things without, you'll have to do something like this. So what we're saying here is, okay, we're allowed to write a user being a viewer of a document with this particular condition. Let's hop on here and see how would we do that. So the tuples are still the same. You're still passing in the user, the relation, the object, but additionally, you're adding a condition with the name. In this case, the name is this, and some context. Note that at the time of write, you don't need to have all the context. At the time of check, what we'll do is combine the context from the check and from the written tuple, and that has to be complete. So at the time of check, if anything is not yet provided, so either provided earlier or at the time of check, we will return an error. So that, of course, here what we can't write the current timestamp, but we can write, okay, what's the grant timestamp? We granted access at this particular point in time. We granted access for 10 seconds within this IP address range. Now, when we need to check, what would we do? Again, same thing. We'd pass in the user, the object, and the relation. And we additionally add the context of what's missing, what haven't we provided here? The current timestamp, so the time of check, and the user IP at the time of check. In this case, we will evaluate, or OpenFGA will evaluate based on, it'll take all of these, merge them together, pass them to this, make sure this returns true. If it doesn't, this will basically be false. As a test here, what we'll have is, okay, in this case, the current timestamp is valid, like it's within 10 seconds. The IP address is allowed, so we expect it to return true. In another case, the notice is this is beyond 10 seconds, so this is 11 seconds later. So the grant duration, this part of the will return false. So we expect this to return false and cannot view if Anne is trying to view at this particular point in time. Same if we pass in an IP address range that is not allowed. So if when Anne is trying to view the document from outside the allowed IP address range, we expect it also to return false. List objects is the same thing as the check. You can pass in the context, and you'll return the documents that will match. Here we'll use basically the FGA CLI to make sure what our expectations are met. What we're saying here is true, and yes. So all of these are passing. Everything is returning what we expected it to return. We basically, OpenFGA took the context and returned the responses we anticipated. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Rag. So just to clarify, that demo only works in Rag's machine because he kind of pulled the different versions of different branches to work together. And I don't know if all of that, if you have some local branches up to make that happen too. So yeah,
so
it's impossible for anyone.
If anyone wants to try it, there's a feat ABAC branch on the CLI. You can pull it, run make build, and try it out yourself.
Okay, awesome, cool. Yeah, Shanice, go ahead.
Yes, quick question. There are IP address methods and comparisons. How do the data types work there? How are you dealing with the data types essentially? How do we know that we can compare something to something? Is it automatic, or do we specify those somehow?
So the underlying library that we're using to kind of power this, this expression evaluation engine is Google's CEL, Common Expression Language, and their API kind of interface, their Go API interface allows you to define types and type conversion functions. So, for example, an IP address is accepted as a string input, but then we do like a net IP parse when we actually process it. So based on the type that you define for the parameter, so if you define a parameter as an IP address type, the acceptable input type for that is a string, but then the expectation is that that maps to an actual valid IP. And so for each data type that we support in our expression language, for each parameter type, we have lists, we have maps, we have ints and double, and for each one of those, there's a conversion function, and it accepts a particular input and expects a particular parsing behavior.
Thank you.
Great. So I need to find my slides back. There we go. Here it is. So we have this thing. So we're going to be attending KubeCon in Chicago in November. Anyone is around, lives close to Chicago, goes to the conference, let us know. We'd love to talk to you. And we're going to be presenting on KubeCon this will be more an introduction of how to integrate OpenFGA in an application. And there's also a conference that happens the weekend before that is called Cloud Native Rejects, where Jonathan is going to be presenting with someone that works that is a CNCF ambassador, and they are going to implement a way to kind of implement authorization for Kubernetes itself using OpenFGA. So they are building kind of hacking a demo to show how that could work, and it's going to be presented that day. I think that those demos are also recorded later, so you'll be able to see it live after a few days, I guess, after it happens too. That's it that's the content we have. So let us know if you have any comment or questions and about what we presented, any future features, any problems that you're dealing today with your OpenFGA implementation, or if you're just starting, any initial questions you might have of how to start. Feel free to this moment. Something that so last week we had so we work for Okta, a few of us, like the product team that is building the feature works for Okta. And then last week we had our annual conference that is called Octane, when we presented when we mentioned a stress test we did on top of OpenFGA, that we got it to 1 million RPS with 100 billion tuples. That was using our DynamoDB adapter that is still not open source, but we are going to open source it. The plan is, once we open source it, we're going to publish how we could do that, right? So how we took the OpenFGA deployment with Dynamo to 1 million RPS and 100 billion tuples. That's going to happen. For the open sourcing, it requires some legal work and some product team work that we need to schedule. But that's going to happen in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. It was yeah, Yamil and Adrian were very busy and having a lot of fun over that exercise in the past few weeks. They burned a few $1,000 during the period of time. Okay, so thank you very much then, and we'll see each other in a month. We are gonna be live from KubeCon in the next community meeting, because it's just in the middle of the conference. So we're gonna do it from there. Okay.
Very nice.
See you.
Okay.
Thanks, Andres.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Martin. See you,
Thank
folks.
you. Bye bye.